Hi everyone, it's Tanya and welcome to today's video. In today's video I'm going to recommend to you some of modern Russian authors and writers which I am personally very interested in, and I also think you might be interested in and I think you should check out. Because in the comments to some of my previous videos, some of you asked to give some contemporary Russian literature recommendations, and to be honest, I haven't read a lot of contemporary Russian literature. I think my latest, the most recent author whom I read was Davlatov, and he was working in the second part of the 20th century. He has already passed away. So I don't really have much experience with contemporary Russian literature, but after so many requests I got curious myself and I started researching some authors that I would like to read and check out. I talked to my parents, I asked them what books they are reading, what books their friends are reading, and so I've compiled a list of authors that I need to check out and read, and I just wanted to share this list with you. So keep in mind that I haven't read those books myself, but there's going to be very prominent and well-known authors on this list that are currently working in Russia and in Russian language. They're definitely worth checking out. Some of them won awards, some of them are internationally acclaimed authors, so they are definitely worth checking out. And all of them are on my list. I've already actually ordered some of their books. So, with no further ado, let's begin. I think it's only logical to start with, I guess, the most important author working in Russia currently, and maybe one of the most well-known authors. I feel like even if you don't read much, you still know her name in Russia, and that's Lyudmila Ulitskaya. She is well known abroad, she is well known in Russia. She has received so many literary awards from so many different countries. One of her books, which in English is called Kukotsky Enigma, in Russia is very acclaimed, and it even received a TV series adaptation. I watched that adaptation with my mom when I was in school long time ago. I don't remember much what's happening there, but I remember I really liked that series. So now I'm very curious in the book itself and I want to read it. Kukotsky Enigma is a family story about this very talented, very gifted doctor. He is a gynecologist and he works in the time of Soviet period, the early 20th century Soviet era. And we follow his life from being a young man and then going to university, receiving his degree. And he has a very special gift. So this book has a little bit of magical realism to it, I guess. He has a very special gift which he can see people on the inside, so he can see their organs, and that's what makes him such a good doctor, because he sees what's going on in the body, and then he can very quickly and accurately identify the organ that is in problem. This book is a heavy one, this book is a difficult one, because it deals with the question of abortion. In Soviet Union, abortion was prohibited, and this book also kind of asks the question of if abortion is the right thing to do or if it's not. It also deals with laws, so it has a lot of different topics: difficult family situations, relationship in the family, Soviet era, which was obviously very oppressive. It's not going to be an entertaining, light-spirited book. I read some of the comments to this book mentioning that don't pick this book up if you're not prepared to a heavy read. Also, somebody mentioned that the second part of this book, because this book is split into 4 parts, so the second part of the book is very much kind of magical. It's not exactly realistic because it deals with a dream. So Kukotsky's wife had a dream, and so the second part narrates the dream, and so it's very kind of magical, unrealistic, and for some people it was difficult to read. But after that chapter, the person mentioned that she couldn't put the book down. The book is going to be heavy, but it deals with a lot of interesting topics and interesting issues. Lyudmila Ulitskaya is a very beloved author, so this is the first book and the first author that I want to check out. She has also another book which I have actually already ordered, Medea and Her Children. This book also deals with family. And Medea is our main protagonist. She lives in the Crimea Peninsula, and she is like a very well-known person there because she's the only pure-blooded Greek person on the peninsula who has her family traced back like way back to like ancient Greek times. And she doesn't have any children of her own, but she has a big family of nieces, nephews who come to her house to Crimea and share their problems with her. So she has like a very shy niece, Masha, who has this like love affair with a guy. She has another niece, Nike, who is, contrary to Masha, is like very attractive girl. She's very sexy girl, and so these two girls, they're kind of fighting for the attention of this one guy. She has a nephew who, like her, very much loves the Crimean Peninsula, and together they share the love for the place. So it's going to be like a family drama, and I'm very excited to read it. Another book that I also have by her, and which I am going to read very soon, is this book. I have obviously a Russian copy. Веселые похороны. I think I saw the English translation was Funeral Party. Funeral Party is a short book. It's very short. It has very big font, and it deals with the few last days of life of an artist. A Russian artist who moved to New York City, and so he's dying in New York City. And he's a very likable character. Like he felt very comfortable in Moscow, and he feels very happy and very comfortable in New York City. He has a lot of friends, he has a lot of wives, current wife, and like lots of his previous wives. And in this few last days of his life, he kind of unites all of these people around himself. It's like he connects his first love and his last love. He brings to peace his friends who fell apart long time ago. He also brings to peace like Orthodox Christian priest and a Jewish priest. And even after his death, he stays the center of the universe created by himself. I feel like it's going to be like just a kind, maybe kind, I hope so, and heartwarming story about this lovable man bringing love and peace to the world. That's what I expect from this book. That's what the blurb kind of gives me feeling of. So I'm very excited to read this book. I really want to read it like soon, very soon. So yeah, this is the first book that I have by her, and then after this I will read her Medea and Her Children, and then I will read Kukotsky Enigma. Людмила Улицкая, the first author that I wanted to share with you. The next important and very much acclaimed author that I wanted to share with you today is Evgeny Vodolaskin. So in English it's Eugene Vodolaskin, in Russian it's Evgeny Vodolaskin. He has written quite a few books, but I guess he has like two the most acclaimed and the most well-known books in Russia and also abroad. We will start with Lover. So in Russian it's Lover, in English it's Laurus. Here, the book will be right here. So read for yourself because I don't know how to read it in English. Laurus. Evgeny Vodolaskin, he is a professor of Russian literature. He particularly specializes in ancient Russian literature, and so his first novel, I mean, maybe it's not his first novel, just the first novel that I'm mentioning here, Lover, deals with 15th century Russia, and we follow this young doctor who is also a very talented doctor, and he is working in times when the epidemic of plague broke out. He is very talented and he is helping to a lot of people, but he fails to save the woman that he loved, and she passes away. And after her death, he decides to kind of leave his life for her, kind of, you know, do all the good things to kind of save her soul. And so he travels around Russia, he travels around Western Europe, he even travels in time, healing people and meeting lots of people, and eventually his journey ends in Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem he like faces the final and like the strongest, I guess, struggle of his life. And so from what I understand from the synopsis and the comments to this book also deals with faith and religious beliefs, I guess, of people. And also it has a very interesting writing style, because I'm very excited to read it in Russian. Well, since the events take place in the 15th century Russia, obviously the language will be very much stylized. And also an interesting thing that I read about Yevgeny Vodolaskin, even though he studies ancient Russian literature, he doesn't really like these like historical novels. He doesn't like this like traditional fancy stylization of novels, and that's why this novel Laurus, in Russian it's kind of added that it's not a historical novel. Like, you know, to the title of the novel, Lover, not a historical novel. It's apparently was very important to him that it's not a historical novel. So I thought it was just funny. So yeah, this is the first book that I want to read by him. After that, he has also another very well-known, very much acclaimed novel, which is called The Aviator. In this book, we deal with a man who lived in the beginning of the 20th century, but then something happens to him and he falls in coma, and he wakes up in the end of the 20th century. So he kind of slept through all the events that happened in Russia throughout the century. And there is also two kind of main characters that kind of visit him in the hospital. It's the girl Anastasia, with whom he is in love, but at the same time she was the reason why he fell into coma, but he doesn't know that. And there is this other guy whom he despises, and that other guy who treats like other people poorly. And so there is like this contrast between Anastasia, who has actually done him ill, but he doesn't know that, and he idealizes her, and this other guy whom he despises, and maybe he turns out to be not that bad of a guy. So we will see, because I don't know actually, so we will see. But yes, Aviator is the second novel that I'm going to read by Vodolaskin after I read Lover, because I have already ordered Lover, and so Lover is on its way to me. It's coming, and then there will be Aviator. Okay, so Vodolaskin, this is the second very important author that I wanted to mention today. One more very well-known author that I wanted to mention today is Viktor Pelevin, but he isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I don't know for myself, because I haven't read his works yet, if he is going to be my cup of tea. So we will see. I'm going to try. I have a friend who reads Pelevin a lot, like he really likes him, but he also told me that like he is bizarre. Like his novels are very weird and very strange. He kind of said like I have a feeling that he writes them when he is high or something, or maybe when he is drunk. So apparently the novels are very weird and strange, and actually just judging from the synopsis, it is kind of weird. So one of the novels that like my friend recommended was The Life of Insects, and The Life of Insects is going to be a strange novel about people who are at the same time ants. Like they can turn into ants, and then they can turn from ants back into people, something like that. And they live in this crumbling Soviet Black Sea resort in Alushta. So Alushta is a town, I think it's in Crimea, on the Black Sea. And so they live there, and they're like, there's like a whole variety of characters who like represents different groups of people. There are prostitutes, there are taxi drivers, there are a lot of different like groups of population living in Russia in the 90s. And so this kind of novel is like a parable of life in the 90s Russia. And also it kind of has a lot of actually parallels with this book by Czech authors, so authors from Czech Republic. The book is called Pictures from the Insect's Life, or The Insect Party, or The Life of the Insects, or The Insect Comedy. So like there are different variations of the title, I guess, but it's like a very well known Czech book by Čapek. Like there is two brothers, Karel and Joseph Chapek. So they wrote this like initial novel. Like the idea was the same. So they wrote about different groups of insects which would represent different groups of population in Czech Republic at that time. And so I guess Pelevin took their idea and wrote a book about Russia. Next author is a very interesting author because she is also a translator. So the book that I am going to recommend to you, I think she was the translator herself, because like at least Book Depository doesn't mention any translators. So I think maybe she translated it herself because she is a translator. So the book is called The Time of Women. And this is based on a very famous Soviet movie. That movie actually won Oscar award. Like not many Russian movies won Oscar awards. I feel like maybe only 4 or 3. And this is one of those movies. So the movie is called The Moscow Doesn't Believe in Tears. And so this book, The Time of Women, kind of loosely based on that movie. So we follow a story of a woman who is seduced by like a St. Petersburg kind of very stylish, attractive guy. He seduces her. She gets pregnant and she brings into the world a baby, his daughter, and then she moves into this dormitory. In Soviet Union, when people worked in a factory, normally if every factory would provide a dormitory for its workers. And so she moves into this dormitory and lives in the room with 4 other women. And so these 4 other women are significantly older than her, and they are representatives of different also classes of people. One of them is illiterate, another one is, on the other hand, comes from a very wealthy family, and she even speaks French. Some other, I think she's daughter of some member of some political party or something like that. And so eventually Antonina, so this is the name of the main character, Antonina passes away, and her daughter is left with these 3 elderly women. It's about them raising the child and loving her like to pieces, and at the same time being afraid to lose her. This sounds very good. Besides, I really love that movie, like Moscow Doesn't Believe in Tears. It is such a good movie. I highly recommend it. Like if you can find it somewhere, I would highly recommend it. It's a very good movie. I really like it. So, and this book is based on that. Brilliant. One more author I wanted to talk to you about is Zakhar Prilepin, and the novel that I'm particularly interested in is called Monastery. However, don't be deceived, because actually the book is it's not about monastery, it's about a labor camp. The novel recounts the story of Solovki. Solovki is in the north of Russia, on an island, and that's where also political prisoners and people accused of murder and like heavy crimes were sent to for labor and as their punishment. And so we follow our protagonist. His name is Artyom, and he's 27 years old. He's accused of murder. I think he murdered his father, and he is sent to Solovki. And we basically see how this institution, because initially it was like a place for re-education, like re-educating camp for socially damaging elements, and then we see how in the 1920s this place kind of turns its direction and it becomes a forced labor camp. And Artyom, he is a very strong person. Like he survives cold, he survives hunger, he survives a lot of different harsh conditions that fall on his part, and even in that situation he always looks for a better life opportunities for himself. He falls in love, for example, and through his eyes we kind of see the institution. Somebody mentioned in the comments like to this book that it has like around 40 characters, so the character cast is huge. Like I think they said like 30 to 40 characters, so that's like a lot, and we will meet a lot of people, and we will see a lot of different fates and lives in that novel. So I'm very interested. I have already ordered this book, it's on its way to me, and I will read it and then talk to you about it. One more book by Zakhar Prilepin that I'm also interested in, and I will read after Monastery, is called Sanika. Sanika is a name of the main character, Sasha. so Sanika. He belongs to this generation who, I guess it's my generation, because people who were born on the clash of epoch, you know, when Soviet Union crashed and Russia began. So I guess he was born somewhere in the 90s, because it's mentioned in the synopsis that like he doesn't remember Soviet Union, which is like me. Like I didn't live there. Maybe he's a little bit older than me. But at the same time, he doesn't trust these new promises of new Russia, which is like very corrupt. And together with his friends, he is trying to kind of raise a revolt, and he wants to create a new country. He wants to create a new Russia by ruining everything that Russia is now. This book actually received a lot of criticism, so there were a lot of positive comments about it, but there also were a lot of negative comments. And negative comments in particular, they were saying that like this book advocates kind of revolution, it advocates revolt without really understanding consequences of it. So this book is very controversial. I still want to read it because obviously it deals with contemporary Russian problems, or like not so recent past, which is like the 90s. And you know, Russia now kind of came to be based on what happened in the 90s. Like we still have, like it's still corrupt, for example. There are still a lot of very many problems in Russia that are still there and were there in the 90s, so it deals with our current life. Next author is Olga Slavnikova. She is a very interesting author. Like from what I see, like the synopsis of her books, they also sound like a little bit weird, a little bit strange, especially one of them, like the second book that I will be talking about, but they really sound very good. The first book that I wanted to mention, and it's very interesting actually, so the first book is called Men Who Couldn't Die. Reading this synopsis, I kind of think it very much reminds me of this German movie Goodbye Lenin. So German people, if you're there, you probably have seen that movie. It's a German movie, Goodbye Lenin. I will put the picture here. It has one Russian actress, Chulpan Khamatova, which like I love her. I have so much respect for her. So she is such a brilliant woman, first of all, person and actress. Like if she's in the movie, you can be sure that it's a good movie. So if she is in the movie, watch it. It deserves your attention. So what's the similarities? Basically the book is set in the chaos-riven Russia in the 90s. So after the Soviet Union crashed, we follow a family, a man who is paralyzed and he cannot leave the house, his wife and his daughter. And in order to keep him alive and in order to like kind of keep his spirits up, the women decide to conceal it from the man that the Soviet Union crumpled, and they create this like Soviet reality for him. So they forge newspapers for him. His daughter, she has like connections on TV broadcast, and like using those connections, she creates like special news episodes like for him to make him believe that Soviet Union is still there. Because I guess also one of their objective is to keep his pension. In order to receive his pension, he has to stay alive, so they're trying to preserve his life as long as possible to receive that pension. And so the women themselves, they are dealing with this like very different realities of their lives, like the reality of Soviet life that they're trying to preserve in their home, and then the life on the outside of their house with this like rapidly changing political landscape in the country and just life in the country and all the events that are happening there. Because the 90s was like wild time in Russia. Like I am lucky that I was a child and I don't remember much, but that was like a wild and also a dangerous time. So they're dealing with all of that while trying to keep their father alive. However, the man himself, he has different plans, and eventually they learn that he is conspiring to commit suicide. So this is like the premise of the book. And so why I mentioned Goodbye Lenin movie, it's because in that movie the main character, the guy, he is also trying to keep his mother alive, and he also kind of preserves the Western Germany lifestyle for her. Like she came out of coma, and in order to like kind of not to stress her out, not to scare her, he doesn't tell her that the wall was broken and that now like Berlin was Western and Eastern Berlin was like reunited, and Western and Eastern Germany were reunited again. And he keeps this Eastern Germany, Soviet Eastern Germany, kind of for her, by also forging newspaper, like filming crazy TV episodes for her with his friends. So like the premise is very much reminiscent. So I guess maybe she took the premise from that movie. But the book itself also sounds very interesting. The second book by the same author, Olga Slavnikova, is Lightheaded. And this is I think it's a satirical novel, but also dealing with an interesting question of how much of his freedom does a person have to give up for like the bigger good, for the good of the country, or for the good of the people of the country. Because we follow this man. His name is Maxim Yermakov. And so Maxim Yermakov, he was born with like a hole in his, like you will see in the picture here and on the book, he was born like with a void kind of place in his head, and that's why he has always been very different. He had different weight until his mother started feeding him more food, and eventually he is being accused of kind of being the reason for some terrorist attacks, being the reason for some building collapses. And so like secret agents of the government come to him and they ask him to kind of think of the people around him, think of the country that he is living in, and do the morally right thing, which is to commit suicide. He refuses, and then like the struggle with the government forces and him begins. So it's going to be like a satirical novel, but also kind of dark humor, you know, dark humor novel. So we will see. But I'm very interested. I'm actually interested in both of these books, and now I really want to rewatch Goodbye Lenin because this first book reminded me of Goodbye Lenin, and I love that movie. And the last author for today that I wanted to talk to you about, who is also a very important author, and with her novel that I'm going to talk about now, she won a lot of awards. So the author's name is Guzel Yakhina, and the book that I want to talk to you about, in English it's called Sluiha, right? Yes, Sluiha. And in this novel we also follow a story of 1920s Russia. So time of like revolution recently happened, and the Soviet regime starts kind of to build up and create the country according to its rules. And so one of the events in particular that is described in this book is called Раскулачивание. The English name I found, dekulakization. Sounds funny. Okay, dekulakization, раскулачивание in Russian. So basically what happened? Well, you know that Communist Party, being Communist Party, were against anything capitalism, and so they decided to eliminate all capitalism from agricultural section, which meant they needed to eliminate this like rich and well-off class of like peasants who had like a lot of grain to sell, who were hiring people to work for them. They were called kulaki. So kulakization, kulak. Kulak was the rich peasant who had a lot of things to sell, and that's how he was earning his living. The policy was proclaimed, but there was no like guiding rules on how to do that, which led to a lot of kind of misuses of power. There were a lot of people killed and murdered, and so the Sluiha, the book, it tells the story of that event. We follow life of this young woman who lives with her abusive husband. Is mean and abusive towards her. Her mother-in-law is also like very matriarchic person, so she doesn't really have a good life. But her husband gets killed because he hid grain from the like communist party when they came to collect all of it and like kind of, you know, take it. It was supposed to be taken from them. He hid the grain and they found it out, they killed him, and then as Sluiha they sent her to Siberia. It's just life of the woman, like learning to live her life in those new hard conditions, but at the same time coming to herself, like finding her strength, finding her resilience, you know, learning to live again in this new capacity. That book received a lot of praise. That is like also a very famous book. There is also a movie based on that book, also starring Chulpan Khamatova. So Chulpan Khamatova is the actress from Goodbye Lenin, so the same actress, which I want to watch once I am in Russia. So yes, I also want to read the book first and then watch the TV series. So that was my list of contemporary Russian literature that I want to read and I want to check out. This is only a small part of my list, so there will be a part 2 to this video, so keep your eyes out also for that if you're interested. Let me know in the comments which books in particular caught your attention, which books would you like to read for yourself. Let me know about some important contemporary authors from your country, because I always like to learn about new authors from different places and different corners of the world. I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope it was interesting, and thank you very much for watching. Have a very good day, and I will see you soon in my next videos. Thank you very much. Bye.